Thank you all for attending our session titled Acceptance and Inclusion, Are You the Barrier? This panel was designed by Haley Geraci, Jacob Cook, and Shelby Mercer. All three students are minoring in autism studies and completed this presentation as part of their Families and Communities class. The charge they were given was to develop a presentation that they thought would be most valuable to the Defiance College community. We hope that this panel will encourage you to reflect on your own beliefs and practices and help you to identify your strengths and areas for progress related to the acceptance and inclusion of autistic individuals.
In 1987, Mayor Chauvin published Language of Us and Them. This poem was written to invite people to reflect on the way the society stigmatizes individuals living with disabilities through the language we use. We like things. They fixate on objects. We try to make friends. They display attention-seeking behaviors. We take breaks. They display off-task behaviors. We stand up for ourselves. They are non-compliant. We have hobbies. They self-stem. We choose our friends wisely. They display poor peer socialization. We persevere. They perseverate. We like people. They have dependencies on people. We go for a walk. They run away. We insist. They tantrum. We change our minds. They are disoriented and have short attention spans. We have talents. They have splinter skills. We are human. They are. The words of this poem are still relevant today. The way we think about and discuss disability influences the way we interact with people who are disabled and the exceptions we hold for them. The medical model is a set of assumptions, the views, deviations from normal in the same framework as physical disease. According to Hinkle and Hodge, the goal for treatment is to fix or cure the differences so the person may be as close to normal as possible. If a difference cannot be cured, the goal becomes to help the person to be as normal as possible by gaining access to specialized support often provided in segregated settings. A common critique of the medical model is that it stigmatizes disability and creates contexts where disability individuals are viewed as less than or not capable. The emphasis in the medical model on defects creates a society where some individuals with disabilities are viewed as extraordinary or for completing everyday tasks despite their disability. Other times, a person may be unfairly judged as incapable of something based on assumptions about them because of their status as a disabled person. The social model of disability offers an alternative perspective that suggests that disability is socially imposed on individuals with impairments. In this model, there's a clear distinction between the impairments, a biological difference, and the disability. As argued by Hinkle and Hodge, it is not one's bodily function that limits their abilities. It is the barriers caused by a society that was designed for an average or normal person. The social model suggests that instead of using resources to help disabled individuals become more normal, we should focus on our resources to design physical and social environments that are more flexible so the barriers to inclusion can be eliminated.
By eliminating social barriers that cause disability, we can move towards accepting all variations of normal, including individuals that are neurodivergent. Acceptance is especially important to everyone on this planet. As defined by Cage, 2018, acceptance can be defined as an individual feeling accepted or appreciated as an autistic person with autism positively recognized and accepted by others, and the self as an integral part of the individual. We all have ways in which we fit into this remarkably diverse and largely populated planet. I am a person that is considered to have high-functioning autism. The label is called Asperger's syndrome. It is something that I was diagnosed with when I was in junior high. I have made great strides in my attempt to improve myself as it relates to my school career. I believe that acceptance starts and ends with a family, as documented by Hubert and Chalmers, 2002. Quantitative research shows that adults with ASD report that having a positive family support and involvement contribute to their feelings of self-worth and self-esteem. Just as positive experiences and perceptions of autism acceptance can have a positive influence on mental health, negative experiences and perceptions are thought to have negative influence on mental health also. We all have our own individual style. Our style is something that sets us apart. I'm a woodworker. I enjoy that every piece of furniture made is distinct and is unique. I also know the flaws in every piece that I make. Does this make the piece any less valuable? Not in my eyes. In fact, the flaws may be exactly what makes each piece one of a kind. Unfortunately, many people with autism learn that in order to be valuable, they need to conform to the ideal of normal. This societal pressure often leads to masking, which is a modifying behavior to appear less autistic. Masking allows autistics to avoid the negative social consequences of appearing autistic. However, it can have detrimental effects on mental health. As reported by Mandy in 2019, masking is a common phenomenon, but research on masking is limited because despite the autistic community discussing this topic for decades, researchers have only recently become aware or interested in this topic. I think of people with autism as just having things that everybody else has, just having a more of an intense stimuli or degree of it. I am reminded of the example of a thermostat. It has many different settings that you can put it to. There are varying degrees of which people are able to deal with certain things. We have to see autistic people as capable people. As suggested by the social model of disability, we should strive to create environments that allow autistic people to be openly autistic. To do so, we need to shift from autism awareness and tolerance and move towards autism acceptance and inclusion.
As suggested by the social model of disability, we should strive to create environments that allow autistic people to be openly autistic. To do so, we need to shift from autism awareness and tolerance to autism acceptance and inclusion. The Oxford Dictionary provides two definitions for inclusion, the first being the action or state of being included or of being within a group or structure. The second definition, and the one we want to use specifically for autism inclusion, is the practice or policy of providing equal access to opportunities and resources for people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized, such as those who have physical or mental disabilities and members of other minority groups. In simple terms, this means equal access to opportunity for all individuals. Inclusion is a process rather than an individual action. Inclusion needs to be an ongoing process that continues on a daily basis in all aspects of society. From diagnosis to end of life, inclusion should be a part of every interaction an autistic individual engages in, whether it's with or without people. This means accepting unexpected bodily movements, such as hand flapping or rocking, or environmental modification, such as posting step-by-step instructions for how to complete certain tasks that are part of daily life. When inclusion is a process rather than an individual action or end goal, it becomes part of our culture, and it does not take the quote-unquote extra work that is stigmatized by the word inclusion. The process of inclusion is bidirectional. This means that both parties of the interaction need to be willing to work together and compromise. So, neurotypical individuals need to adjust their actions to meet the needs of the autistic individuals, and the autistic individuals need to accommodate the needs of the neurotypical individuals and be willing to adjust their actions to meet in the middle as well. This will create an accepting environment where both parties are more comfortable interacting with the other party. Additionally, this shared responsibility shows value and respect for all participants. This diagram shows what exclusion, integration, and inclusion all look like in comparison to one another. Here's what this might look like in an educational, athletic, and work environment. In an educational setting, Exclusion might look like a pull-out classroom where autistic students are not involved with the general education students at all. So they are in a separate classroom doing the work that is the same or less than that of the general education classroom. Integration in a classroom might look like autistic students being put in the classroom in their own space. So there is limited or no attempt to include the students socially. It is a space that is viewed as meeting the goal of inclusion. So they are in the classroom, but not in the class. Inclusion in a classroom setting is where autistic students are in the general education classroom and serve the same role as every other student. They're included as part of the classroom community, and they work with other students at times. In an athletic setting, exclusion would be demonstrated by having separate athletic teams for neurodiverse individuals. Integration would be allowing neurodiverse individuals to participate on a team, so they might have a limited role, but they are not denied participation. Inclusion on an athletic team would be having autistic athletes earn their role on the team, whatever role that may be. They are not given special treatment, and they are valued the same as every other individual. In an employment setting, exclusion would look like separate employment opportunities for neurodiverse and neurotypical individuals. Integration would be hiring employees for menial jobs that don't allow them to showcase their skills or give them potential for growth. Inclusion would be having autistic employees that have the same job positions and responsibilities as anybody else at the establishment. Jacob previously brought up the comparison of autistic sensory input to a thermostat. This idea that everybody feels the same thing but autistic individuals experience it more intensely is important when it comes to understanding how to create an inclusive environment. Sensory input affects the autistic individual's ability to engage in the environment. If the individual is not overstimulated and feels comfortable in the environment, they may be able to meet the demands without additional support. If the individual is experiencing sensory overload, they may rely on certain supplements to function at their normal level. People with autism face many barriers in the environment due to a lack of acceptance and understanding of autism. These barriers hinder their ability to reach their full potential. In order to reach a state of inclusion, these barriers need to be eliminated. 3 simple ways to eliminate potential barriers for individuals with autism is to create environments where modeling, task analyses, and visual aids are standard. Modeling is showing someone how to do something by performing the task yourself. An example of modeling in a classroom is showing how to work through a math problem in front of the class. So you would explain every step as you go, then you would have the students repeat those steps using different numbers. An example of modeling in athletics would be demonstrating how to throw a football, so showing where to hold the ball, how your fingers are placed on the ball, the motion of your arm, and how to stand in order to make a throw. An example of modeling in the workplace, so greasing a fan to allow air circulation within a barn. Your boss would need to show you how to grease a fan properly to then allow air to circulate throughout a barn and provide the air that the animals need.
Task analysis is when you break down a complex activity into a series of component steps. This allows a person to focus at one step at a time and to see all the steps that are necessary to complete the task. An example of task analysis in a classroom would be having step-to-step instructions of how to complete an assignment. For example, a paper could be broken up into sections: intro, body 1, body 2, body 3, conclusion, and each section could be outlined as what it needs to be included in each section. An example of task analysis in athletics, a football coach could break down a running play into its component parts by telling the athlete to first grab the ball, then running to the right, and then back to the left. An example of a task analysis in the workplace, an example for me, would be when a supervisor tells me to raise up the feed lines. He lists the necessary steps, raise the feed lines, blow out the feeders, and then put the hopper on for the feed line. This is specific for my job, and this is what my supervisor told me is an example of task analysis. Thank you very much.
Visual aids are visual cues that share information about an activity, routine, or expectation. Visual aids can take many forms such as photographs, written text, and environmental arrangements or graphic organizers. An example of visual aids in a classroom would be having a picture of a calculator by the door when you walk in to remind the students to grab a calculator as they enter the room. An example of visual aids in athletics is in football. You can use a whiteboard to show the play, meaning you can draw the player running from the right and back to the left. For an example of visual aids in the workplace, supervisors can make a list of what needs done to be on a task. Research suggests that acceptance and inclusion are both subjective experiences that are unique to each individual and influenced by perceptions. In order to understand inclusion and barriers to inclusion, we need to understand the lived experience. In that spirit, we are excited to introduce our panelists who have joined us today to share their lived experiences.